Welcome to Difference Talks, the show that focuses on one word, differentiation, and how it is more important today than ever to discover what makes your brand unique and celebrate it with the most important people, your team.
In each episode, we meet people who've had the courage to stand up and stand out, sometimes against great odds. In a world of copies, conformity, and commodities, uniqueness speaks volumes. Difference Talks.
Welcome to Difference Talks. I'm Barry LeBove. I am the owner, founder of LeBove Marketing, Communications, and Training, and I am the author of The Power of Differentiation. I have a guest today who focuses purely on differentiation. He's in a very competitive field. He has been the award-winning designer of the Mazda MX-5 Miata, of the Audi A8 and other Audis, and the Lucid Air, which I own, as well as the upcoming Lucid Gravity, which will be another car of the year, no doubt about it. Derek Jenkins, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Barry. Super happy to be here.
Derek, just getting right to the point, you love cars, okay? You're also a surfer. And you're not just a designer designing interiors and exteriors of beautiful cars. You are also the brand leader at Lucid Motors. Pretty creative, pretty amazing world that you live in. Share with me the inspiration, if you can, around cars and car culture, because it drives the designs that you have created.
I grew up in Orange County, California, Southern California. And so in my formative years, kind of 1980 through 1990, those were my teen years. All I cared about was getting up early, going surfing and, skateboarding and riding my bike on the boardwalk. And that excited me. And, 12, 13 rolls around, and then you really start to see a lot of cool cars. And Southern California was the epicenter for, I think, a lot of car culture, but probably more importantly, it was the epicenter of import car culture for the United States at the time. And there was just so much going on, and Volkswagens and Hondas and, BMW, all of that was just kind of blowing up at the time. And, I just related kind of youthful times and surfing and beach culture and skateboarding and cars and girls. And it was all just one thing. And I realized, like, as I got older, I realized, man, I really like to do something with cars, whether it's an engineer, be an engineer, which I thought I wanted to be, but I realized that's probably not where I would be best applied. And somehow this intersection between kind of culture, fun, design, that became my focus. And as I've gone further in my career, I realized it's all about emotion. It's all about tapping into some sort of emotional experience, which is very closely related to design and very closely related to brand identity, quite honestly.
Well, what's interesting as you say that, if you look at what you have created, when you worked with Audi, you're in a very competitive field. You were up against the leading premium cars in that segment, Mercedes, BMW as an example. And you created the A8, which was, I think, gorgeous, but it had the space frame. Remember, it was the aluminum frame, which tremendous car. My company launched that for Audi. And that's where we met many, many years ago, originally. What I think is interesting, though, is you've tackled, and this is a personal question, you tackled that for Audi. You go to Mazda. Okay, Mazda's up against some of the big ones, the major Japanese imports. You did great there. Then you left a more traditional environment and you went to Lucid Motors. It wasn't even Lucid at the time, it was Ativa. And you come in there and you have no momentum. You have great ideas, but you had momentum against you as far as being an upstart. You're going up against Tesla. and you're in a world where there were very few EV automakers at the time.
Yes.
What drove you to do that? Where was your inspiration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I have to go back to kind of even the starting times at Audi. I've always had, I think I've always had a soft spot for the underdog, for the alternative kind of brand. And when I joined Audi, that was in the early 90s, 94, around that time. And but prior to that, all through college and everything, I was a huge Audi fan with Quattro and rally racing and all of that. And there was something about it that I thought, man, this is such a cool brand. It's different than BMW. It's different than Mercedes. And that's what I spent my early career in that kind of boot camp of like, how do we uplift this brand? How do we bring the emotion that I'm feeling about this brand to the average consumer? And so that was, kind of like literally was my boot camp. Flash forward to my Mazda days, same kind of thing. Mazda was in a tough spot. They had just split off from Ford. But man, talk about a company that has soul and spirit and drive, and it always drew me to that brand. And I'm like, we need to use design, use branding to express this emotion to a broader audience, and that's what drove all the programs that we were working on at the time. And now this opportunity comes along to literally start from scratch, to not have any legacy to kind of contend with, agree or disagree with the legacy. It's always there in the background, and you always have to figure out how to work with it, both pros and cons. And sometimes the cons can really be a challenge to overcome, because a brand such as Audi or such as Mazda has preconception in the marketplace and consumers' minds, and they maybe have already made up to their mind to the point where no matter what the company came out with, their immediate response was probably maybe not to even consider it, even if it's fantastic. And you have to overcome that. When you start from scratch, it's like, okay, I can take everything I've learned for the last 20 years, and we can kind of build on that and try to curate a brand from scratch, an emotion from scratch. Of course, strong dose of engineering excellence, innovation, technology, forward thinking. That the prospect of that was so enticing and so just like, oh my God, this is a chance of a lifetime. Certainly playing in the background was Tesla's success. I'd watched close former colleagues, designers and others, come up and struggle through the first 4 or 5 years of that company. And, honestly, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I didn't think they had a chance in hell from if I go all the way back to like 2010 when things were just really getting going with the Roadster, I was like, come on, guys, get real, you know? And of course,
Right.
to watch that unfold in person and then to have direct contact to individuals that were forward thinking enough and risk taking enough to go ahead and put their traditional OEM career on hold and join this crazy startup, and then to go and succeed and change the world, that was tremendously inspiring. So when the opportunity came across my desk to join a startup, not just any startup, but a startup with former Tesla individuals and former industry experts that I respected and had wonderful reputations, I'm like, well, I'm confident in what I do. I think these people are amazing, and they've been involved in doing it once before. We got as good a shot as anybody to pull this off. And that was my mindset when I joined in 2015.
It's interesting as you say all of this, because you did start from scratch. You did join up. Peter Rawlinson is the CEO of the company. He's a former Tesla designer and leader engineer. And what's very, very fascinating is, because I've owned 3 Teslas, I own a Lucid Air GT Grand Touring, which I love, Zenith Red.
Great color.
What's really interesting is the Lucid, and I mention it in my book because I felt that over the years, Tesla's kind of lost its step in how the experience is with the consumer. And Lucid, to me, was so attractive. And it was a beautiful product. the performance was absolutely great, and the interior was wonderful. It was not a Spartan interior like Tesla would have.
Right.
So can you explain your approach to design? Because there's the exterior, there are the lines, beautiful, but there's the interior and how that relates to the user's experience.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think you have to go back to the kind of, this is the formative first few weeks when I joined the company, and after I had already kind of signed to join, we were really, I came into this space, and it was just the shell of a small company under 100 people, and we had there already were 2 or 3 designers there, but there wasn't really a plan as to what we wanted to be. It was like, okay, we're going to do a really great electric car. We're going to beat Tesla, but again, this is 2015. At the point I joined, just to give you perspective, the Volkswagen Group Dieselgate scandal hadn't even kicked off yet. It's that long ago. So if that was like seismic for the industry in terms of getting the industry to wake up and shift towards electrification. So it was only Tesla. Tesla was the only game in town. There was the beginnings of what we now know is going on in China, but as far as the Western companies, it was slow, And so we had to kind of identify, well, where's our opportunity? And we knew that Tesla was attracting a lot of early adopters and forward-thinking consumers, and that market was a growing market. So we saw this opportunity to do a more sophisticated, more elegant vehicle based on advanced technology. So it wasn't just purely style. And then that, of course, you start to look at how to structure space, make the car more efficiently packaged, keep it more compact and light on the outside, more spacious on the inside. And then, of course, the interior is where you're going to put that focus of material quality, fit and finish, display technology, a nice overall ergonomic layout that is both comfortable, but also feels sporty and cocoon-like, and this balance between displays and analog inputs. So, we knew that already even early adopters were complaining about the elimination of all analog input and trying to find this balance where we can have some traditional switches and then some very thoughtful or ergonomic layout to displays. And then the software itself, trying to minimize deep menus and keep things as on the surface as possible. Put 1-2 touch maximum to get to most things. And that's an ever evolving art in itself. And that's where we landed. And I think I'm super proud because we designed the majority of that car in late 15 and early 16. So the actual design, as you know it, is going on 8 years since conception. And I think it's aged quite well. And in some ways, people are just now discovering it and going, wow, this is nice, And that's a great feeling as a designer. That's exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, I know that driving the Lucid Air that I have, I will be stopped by people and they go, what is that? What is that car? Who makes that car? Because it's so beautiful and stunning. How about when you talked about the experience, how about sharing the Easter eggs you have inside the car that allude to where the car was born?
Yeah. A big part of the origin story and early discussion of the formation of the brand was to kind of build on a California story. I felt like, well, California's been a huge inspiration for me growing up here, and even when I was working in Europe or doing my work in Japan for years, I would always come back to California and kind of car culture, the environment, and I still feel it's something that's so massively influential in our industry, and it just is always the case. And then I realized, like, it's not just my industry, it's the lifestyle industry, it's the health industry, it's environmental technologies, it's connected technologies, it's the internet, it's so much goes on in California that is inspiring both from an emotional standpoint as well as a entrepreneurial and technology standpoint. And they're things that routinely influence the world. And I felt like, man, we should celebrate that. German car companies celebrate that they're developed on the Autobahn, and Italians celebrate beauty and technology, and the British celebrate, tradition and ceremony in their car development. And I felt like, man, we should own this. This is something that can be us. And we kind of developed a series of brand tools around California. We refer to it as heart and mind, and this idea, this balance of both the emotional human experience, beauty, art, material, emotion, and technology and innovation. If those two things can work hand in hand, what a great kind of DNA for a brand to have. And so as we worked through that, we borrowed from the California flag, which is the grizzly on the flag, and we very respectfully fine-tuned that bear silhouette. And so we use that silhouette not so much as our brand logo, because our logo is actually our name, but as a kind of symbol. And so we use that independently throughout the vehicle. It's on the seats, it's hidden in the center console. There's a few places behind surfaces that people will never find them. It's on our motors, and it's even on our launch control software. There's a little animation when you do launch control that rears up. And so we have a lot of fun with that. And I think it's something that is growing, and we're using more and more throughout our communications.
I think it's brilliant. My 6-year-old grandson said, "Papa, what's this bear?" when he was in my Lucid. And I said, so I told him the story. And you think about it, everybody in the audience, this is what differentiation's about. It's celebrating.
Yes.
It's not a clinical lecture on, okay, here's what we're doing. It's let's have fun. Let's bring some emotion. Let's do something original. If you're doing something that celebrates your uniqueness and you smile as you talk about it, you're doing something right.
Totally.
There's an energy to it.
And it's super important because truth be told, as much as we do put a lot of energy and focus on design, we are an engineering-driven company. And I say that lovingly and thoughtfully because, with cutting-edge technology, you can overcome amazing challenges and bring magical experiences to consumers, and that becomes also your brand halo, your brand glow. And so, but the reason I bring that up, because it's easy to get caught up in, we can get another 2% efficiency out of this, and if we do this and lighten this up and get a little bit more aerodynamic, and it's like you can lose sight of like the end experience if you're not careful. And so having that levity and things like the bear logo and playing with it and almost overdoing it sometimes can make it endearing, I think.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be back. And I'm going to ask you about how you've been able to tackle challenges with your team, because Lucid had to fight a lot of headwinds throughout its experience. It has not been just a slam dunk and everything's going great. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what is a best day for Derek Jenkins. So thank you very much. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Difference Talks podcast. Difference Talks is brought to you by LeBeau Marketing Communications and Training. LeBeau focuses on one word: differentiation.
In fact, we wrote the book on it, called The Power of Differentiation. Our goal is to inspire 1 million people with this message, helping brands win hearts, minds, and market share.
Discover more at LeBeau.com.
Everybody, we are back. We're having a fantastic, fascinating discussion with Derek Jenkins. Derek, a question for you. You are internationally renowned as a leading designer of some of the most celebrated cars in the world. From a distance, it appears like, wow, lucky guy, everything's going great. must be easy. Wow. We all know that's not the case. Lucid started from scratch. You've had headwinds. You've had tough times. You've made some progress. You've had competitors come in. You've had competitors drop off. You've had a lot in your way. You've had to hire a lot of people. Share with us how you, as leader, yes, you're designer, of course, but leader, as the or a leader at Lucid, how have you been able to rally people, to be able to focus them in a very, very dynamic situation in the industry that we're in right now regarding EVs?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been the challenge of a lifetime, the challenge of a career, no question about it. Because again, I'm coming off of long stints with big car companies, Volkswagen and Audi, the collective group of Volkswagen, and again, a good 6-year run at Mazda. These are all established car companies with structures and process and product cycles, and it's quite structured, and that was great for training and kind of a good beginning and mid career. But when coming to Lucid, you're really starting from scratch. You're talking to investors. You're trying to convince new talent to join the company from secure positions at major car companies and other industries. And it's what I found is it's super important to be able to connect with people on an emotional level of what it is you're trying to do, what it is you want to build. Give them insight into what you see, why you joined this company, because I realized, like, if I'm going to draw top talent, and I'm going to, not just to the design group, but if we have top engineers or manufacturing experts or scientists, how are we going to convince them to leave their otherwise pretty secure gig to come join this, let's be honest, crazy startup in the beginning, that the likelihood of succeeding is pretty slim? You have to tell that story. You have to tell that vision. You have to help them envision a world 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, when we get a product on the road after building factories and so on. So I rely a lot on storytelling, and you know what? Storytelling is brand building. That's what you're doing at that point, and all of that DNA, all of that storytelling is in essence what we went on to create. And I use those tools and that storytelling to motivate my team. Now, I'm fortunate. My core expertise is in design, so I'm already working with optimistic and visionary, dreamer type people. So they're junkies for this kind of thing. They want it. What's next? What we can do? Oh my God, there's nothing in our way. We can do anything. And so they get really excited about that. And I find that super important. I also have to use that kind of communication skill with our marketing team and with our engineering team and with our retail team, so they can convey that directly to consumers. Even our finance team, at the end of the day, they're the ones doling out the resources to allow us to do our work. And so it's important that you're always communicating that across channels. And I think this is one of the strongest tools that imaginary, people with strong imaginations and visions can have. It's not my ability to sketch a car. A lot of people can do that. It's the ability to kind of weave together a vision that others can digest and get motivated by.
So what happens when you're dealing with pressure? The government comes down and is going to change something that could alter. You've got new competitors coming in. If you don't hit your numbers for a quarter, people are saying this or that. How do you focus the people you have to feel like, okay, we're going to do well. In fact, we're going to kick it. We're going to really do great here. How do you do that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that can get quite challenging. I mean, the automobile is a multifaceted, highly complex product with so much influence across legislation, physics, safety, aerodynamics, the aesthetic component, just functionality, daily livability. The modern consumer has a very narrow appetite for inconveniences or something's not quite right, or, and I feel like this is kind of the challenge of design. Design is there's the aesthetic component of design, which most people I relate with, like the car looks so great. But the reality is the process to get to the look is a whole series of solving problems, right? It's solving problems to make the car look sleek, solving problems to make the set lines of the hood look organized and elegant, solving problems that the car fits well on the wheels and looks modern and unlike it. That's the look of the car, but to get to the look, you have to solve all these other things along the way to make sure the lighting is working effectively, to make sure the front end has enough crush area for safety, to make sure the hood can actually open without the hinges creating clashes. And you think, well, that's engineering. It is engineering, but I'm working with the engineer to find solutions that make it look right and beautiful and solves technical. So we're working hand in hand, and there's the aerodynamic component is a huge one where we're working with the aerodynamicist, the simulation. And honestly, I'll be honest, there are days it's like, we're never going to solve this. We're never going to get this right, and then you just keep going at it. And the engineers put their brain towards it. The designers put their brain towards it. We argue about it. We agree, we disagree, we fight about it. And in the end, something comes out that we can all stand by and feel proud about, that's still producible and not going to break the bank and looks great. And that's the beauty of it all, because the amount of people hours that go into that vehicle by the time it hits the road, and if it actually looks like something that looks good and people like it and it works good, it's untold amounts of human effort to make that possible. And that's the ultimate reward, quite honestly. It is tough from day to day, but in the end, when you get it all solved and you get it out there on the road, that's what makes that. It's the ultimate feeling.
So when you look down the road 3 years, let's say you and I do another podcast in 3 years and you're on and you go, oh, it's been the greatest 3 years for Lucid. What's happened?
I'll tell you what's happened. So air continues to proliferate and becomes a highly appreciated and successful product on the road, as it continues to do. We've had a few successive quarters of growth here, and we're excited about that. And the car continues to mature. We launch our Gravity. That's going to come out in late December and continue to ramp up throughout the beginning of the year. And then we're working on a new platform we call the mid-size platform, and that's going to spawn multiple products. And if you talk 3 to 5 years, all of those products will have been on the road by now, and they will be selling well, and it'll be proliferated the Lucid experience and the Lucid brand to a far greater audience than we have today. And that would mean success in North America, Europe, Middle East, and maybe even eventually elsewhere in the world. That's what success looks like to me. And it's not just about the company and profits and selling the car. It's also the fact that Lucid has the most efficient vehicles on the road today in the world. Lucid Air is the most efficient electric vehicle on the planet. And that's something that we're instilling into our SUV. That'll be the most efficient SUV on the planet. And that's what we're going to do with our mid-size program. And that's important. Why? Because we're going farther and faster on less batteries, less electricity. And that's the whole point of this effort, and do it in a way that people don't have to sacrifice. They feel confident and excited about the product, and they get to save energy and save batteries in the process.
When you have a day that you say, this has been fantastic, it's the day that it really inspires you, that brings it all together for all the things you're doing, all the work, all the minutia, all the team building, everything. And you go home and you go, this is what my life is all about. Describe that day. What is that about? What happens?
I mean, I could tell you inside of work, I really enjoy, I do really enjoy cross-functional team meetings where we're really working through problems and solving those problems. The meetings themselves are not always the most comfortable because it can be very emotional for everybody involved. But when we get the problem solved and there's an outcome and we can move to the next stage, I really enjoy that. I also really enjoy the traditional process of reviewing the clay model and going outside, seeing it in the sunlight, knowing that you've made a lot of progress over the last 3 months and the car's really getting to a stage and the whole team is feeling good about it because you've grown and you've evolved and everybody's like, damn, this thing is looking amazing. And you know what it took to get there. That really inspires me. And there's really those moments where you have to like pinch yourself, like, geez, I get to do this. It's crazy, you know? And you're always kind of pursuing that feeling professionally. And the funny thing is that hasn't changed. That's been I realized that early on in college, building my own design model. I realized that the first times in professional environment, winning a project and getting that high, that feeling. And then I realized that even today where I can step back and again, it's not all my work, it's my team's work, you know, but the reward is no less. If anything, it's greater. Outside of work, to me, it's really small things. In fact, I had this feeling just the other day. I think this was last Friday here in LA. I got up early and I ran down to Malibu, and I'm on Pacific Coast Highway, and like there's something about, you know, fall in California is not fall in the Midwest, or you know what I mean? It's still 75, 80 degrees, but the air is like crystal clear. That time of year, there's less traffic on Pacific Coast Highway, but you know, a few vintage cars are out, and you're just like, this is it, man. This is, you know, Pacific Coast Highway on a quiet Friday, early morning, and you know, a few cool cars pass you, and you're like, it brings me all the way back to those early days, you know. And I think that it's the simple stuff like that, you know, that I enjoy the most.
Derek, I want to thank you for today. You are a pleasure. The inspiration that you bring is very obvious. The passion is inspiring. And again, kudos for being that unique individual who has that design genius and works with the brand and the people to create an overall experience, not only for the end user, but for all of those who work with you. Kudos to you and continued success.
Appreciate it, Barry. Thank you so much. This has been a great chat. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank everybody for listening today. Take a really close look at Lucid Motors. Take a look at what they have. I am a very, very satisfied customer. I love my Lucid product. It is the most comfortable product and the most beautiful product I've ever driven. So take a look at what they have. And again, I thank Derek. And remember, the power of differentiation is all of us winning the hearts and minds of the people we work with to help change the world for the better. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Difference Talks, produced by the amazing team at LaBeouf. All original music on this podcast was created by LaBeouf.
Buy our book, The Power of Differentiation, on Amazon. Have a question for the Difference Talks team? Email us at differencetalks@labeouf.com.